Hey guys, it's your Aussie Mum Anna, and in Australia we are in spring, so I'm doing my spring cleaning. My room is an absolute pigsty at the moment. Gotta, get through that pigsty stage to get to the clean organisation at the end. And I thought I'd do a palette declutter, and I thought I'd film it. I was going to call it an entirely drugstore palette. Then I realised I have two palettes that could be considered high-end, on the cheaper end of high-end, but we'll go through them quick. So first is my 3 years ago Too Faced collection that came in a set of three. I got it like a year ago off Catch of the Day. I gave one to my neighbour and one to my friend's daughter, and I kept the pink one. When I first got this, I actually really liked it. Because I use predominantly drugstore shadows, they worked in a similar way to lots of Maybelline shadows. They didn't seem any better or worse than that. I'm over it now, so it can go. And the second one that would be considered high-end is Tarte Young, Wild and Cruelty Free. I think it's called something else, but anyway, I got this. We don't have a Sephora in the state I live in, so last time we went on holiday we went to Sephora and I bought this. I love this palette. I love the way it smells. I love the colours. I don't know why it doesn't get more attention. There are some cool tones, some warm tones. That greenish gold in the bottom quadrant there is amazing. It smells like cake. Anyway, I love it. Okay, so that's my high-end stuff done. Now we're just moving on to drugstore. So we'll start with, this is one of my favourite Australian brands. So this is like a supermarket brand. You get it at Woolies. They have like a base collection, and then they seem to do like limited edition releases all the time, which is good because at the end of those releases they go on clearance, and that's when I get the palette. So I got this for like $7.50. I think it was like $25 when it first came out, but it's a texture neutral palette, and these middle shades here, similar to a Super Shock formula, like kind of a putty. They don't dry out in a palette. The top row from there is shimmers, and they're just mattes, and they are creamy and smooth. They work beautifully. I love this palette like tutty hoo. In the same vein, this is from their next release. Same thing, except we have a couple of pressed glitters in here. So that one was from the Beauty Edit, and this one is from the Beauty Edit as well, funnily enough. I like this. I like it a lot. Some of these are like, someone needs to tell me what the actual definition of a pressed glitter is, because I'm not sure. Like, some are suspended in like, a clear sort of gloss, and then some are just straight up. There are metallics, there are shimmers, and there are mattes, and there are a couple of actually those annoying shades of like mattes with glitter in them that I don't like from anyone. But I am going to keep this palette as well. And then we move on to I Heart Revolution. This has only been available in Tasmania, the state I live in, for a couple of months. No, actually about a year now. When it was first available, I wanted to try it, so I got some, and I don't particularly enjoy it. I got a set that had the Red Velvet palette, the Peanut Butter palette, and the Praline face palette. I'm doing face palettes after this. This one could have been beautiful if the shadows were good. I don't really understand why some people, maybe your drugstore products aren't as good as ours, so I don't know why people seem to think this brand is good for drugstores. So I'm going to be decluttering that. I'm also going to be decluttering this W7 Life's a Peach palette. So this is the dupe of the Too Faced Peachy Mattes. I used to love W7 when I first got into makeup, and I was about like, I wanted all the palettes, whether they were good or not, because I wanted a huge collection, because that's what beauty gurus did. And if you go back and look, I think actually my W7 like makeup collection is one of the most viewed videos on my channel. It has like 6. And over time I've decluttered them all to the point where this was the last one I had. When I first started using this, I thought the mattes were fine, and now I'm like, oh, they just dust away to nothing. So that one's going to be decluttered too. Oh, this was one of my OGs, Essence Touch Up. This is the beauty blogger one. I got this for $3.50 from Target, and I'm keeping it because the Peach and Party split pan blush there and the On the Mauve eyeshadow are just my favorites. I know that clear gloss there is gross. Those other shadows are fine, but I don't really use them. It's a weird combination, but I actually love that, and I'm keeping it. Okay, here we'll move on to some more designer brands. So designer brands, one of my favorite brands. This is the Wonderlust 12 shade eyeshadow palette. It has shimmers, duochromes, and mattes, and it's fantastic quality. It's a fantastic palette. I'll be keeping that. It's from last year's Designer Brands Christmas Relief, the Mauve on Mercury eyeshadow palette. So Designer Brands an Australian and New Zealand drugstore brand, cruelty-free, vegan, and their eyeshadow formula is talc-free. These do not look mauve here, and for some reason I find Designer Brands has never swatched particularly well, but they appear mauve when you use them on the eye, and yeah, I know they have never swatched well for me, like finger swatches, but going on the eyes, they're absolutely beautiful. Love that palette. Keeping it. Another one from Designer Brands. This was just a bit of a random release. This is the Ice Ice Baby mixtape. I love this. They did a cool one and a hot one. This is the cool one. Looks like a bit of a strange mix in the pans, but all the colours work beautifully and are phenomenal. And like I said, they're just sort of ahead of their times with their cool palettes, greens, purples, and greys and stuff. So yeah, love this palette. Keeping it. This is my most recent Designer Brands purchase. This is from this year's holiday release. They have gone ham this year. Like I've seen, I think, over 10 different palettes. This is Natural Glam, so obviously it's not a dupe of an Anastasia palette inside, but like the covering's meant to look like it, I guess. Some would say this is a dupe of Modern Renaissance. Maybe it has some similar colours, although it has linen and petal. There are these beautiful duochromes, so petal, white and peach, and linen is white and pink. Then amethyst is that really bright pink shimmer shade. Aside from that, there's some really warm neutrals. I just got this as my first one from this year's Christmas. Then we go to another from last year's Christmas. So this is Wish Upon a Star. This looks a lot like the Too Faced palette where they did old formula versus new formula, but what this one is some mattes on the bottom. So fairly similar mattes actually to in there, or I reckon it's probably, yeah, all those ones there repeated, but the star of this palette is these putty type shades on top. I believe they're similar to a Designer Brand a Colourpop sort of Super Shock shadow. I've only had one of those, or the MCO one that I showed earlier. This palette, like, they stay pigmented, they haven't dried up, they work really well, and they make beautiful eye look, so I love it and I'm keeping it. This is another Designer Brands one from last Christmas or the Christmas before. To me, the style of this one looks almost like a Jeffree Star one from what I've seen on YouTube. I've never bought one, nor do they sell them anywhere in the state I live in. This is called Electric Dreams, and it is a warm toned palette, but the formula is really, really nice. And these colors, although they seem really, really basic, I don't actually have them all. Like Power Surge is a really, really yellowy cream. I don't have it. Shimmer Shock Off Grid is like that same thing that happens with like in Jeffree Star's ORGY small palette. They had the problems with the shimmers, and Off Grid has those same problems. and does a similar thing, even though it's in a totally different formula, different brand. But I just thought it was funny that it looked like it. They've got the lightning bolt embossed in it. Polarity is one of my favourite colours ever. It doesn't look like it, but it's like a mauve when it goes on. It's on my wrist up there. So yeah, I will be keeping this. Let's see. There we go here. Oh, sorry, I'm not a good declutterer. Essence Crystal Power. Not a huge fan of this palette. I wish it had have worked out. I usually really quite like Essence eyeshadow palette formula. This is not the usual one. I love the colour scheme. I love the blush palette that went with this, but not a huge fan of that, so it can go. Designer Brands Delicate Daisy. Love this baby. This is a 12 pan standard shimmer to matte one. Sort of cool tone. Pretty packaging. Love it. And then I have its warm tone sister Precious Petal, which I love for warm tone looks. Not many mattes. These palettes have 3 mattes and the rest shimmers, but fortunately I have the mattes already in my collection. We've got a couple of Australis palettes here. So this is my new one, Beach Days. I love this. It has a couple of those tie-dyed or mixed shades like Huda Beauty has. Lots of neutral mattes, lots of neutral colours, and then some pops, especially in the pink emoji things, which I love, and cute names like Sandcastle Mimosa Soft Serve Bikini Coral. Australis is that like drugstore brand that's been around forever, and it's been revamped, and I've just suddenly noticed how cool it got. This is the first in this style of, so they've just released like quite a few of these. There's Mesmerized, Shimmerize, or something like. There's a very bold one, a totally neutral one. I also got this one, which is Glitz. This one has some pressed glitters at the bottom, and this is a concealer or priming shadow, and then it's set up so you can, if you want to, just go down the rows like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a purple look, a red look, an orange look, a gold look, and a sort of more neutral look, which I thought was cool. Sometimes I do get a bit overwhelmed with colour, so that was a nice way to introduce a colour thing for me. Australis is cruelty-free and quite reasonably priced. All makeup's quite expensive in Australia, but I love these 2 palettes. Next is, it's a shame I'm going to have to get rid of this because the colour story is gorgeous. Can you imagine if these shadows were good? So it's BYS, which I think stands for Be Yourself, the Rebel palette. They have had the odd good one. They do naked dupes and that sort of thing, and like these look like the colours look like they're going to be so good, but unfortunately they swatch right. See, this is what I mean. Like, I have Designer Brand, which won't swatch to save itself, but actually goes on your eyes alright, and this brand swatches fine and just turns to mud on your eyes. So it's gonna have to go. Oh, going in the going pile. Yay, 5. Wow. Then we have the Rimmel Magnify Eyes Electric Violet Edition, which is staying. I love the purples in here. I love the quality of them. I love them. And we have my 2 balm palettes that I got in the recent half price sale. So What's the Tea is just the cool tone version of these palettes they released. There's a warm tone one too. What I really like about these is there's a like traditional colored primer and a black primer, and it actually does change the look of all these shadows. So you get like, instead of 9 shadows, you get like 27, because each one can be used by itself or with the primer or the other primer, and it does change the color completely. And I really like the quality. Like, it could be because I use drugstore eyeshadows that I'm just not accustomed to a really, really good formula, but I think this is a lovely formula. And then I've got in the balm of your hand, which is like the best of the balms. So it's got the Hot Mama blush, In Stain, Cabana Boy as blushes, and then Bahama Mama bronzer, and then Mary Lou like the highlighter, and then 4 of their greatest eyeshadows, and then 2 lip glosses. I like the way they've done the lip glosses like that, so the eyeshadow doesn't get into it. And I will definitely be keeping that. Then we go on to my small palettes. You thought we were done. Oh. Okay, so Co Beauty. This is the first palette I ever got from them, and this is from the... doesn't have the name of the collection, but this is actually surprisingly really good. I love the mauve shades. I wish I hadn't broken the highlight on the bottom because it was lovely, but I will be keeping that. Then we go into... okay, now when, like I said, when I first got into beauty YouTube, I got into that mentality of like, I want all the palettes, I want a collection like beauty YouTubers. And in Tasmania particularly, we don't have access to all the brands, so what I did was I created a Maybelline collection, and I now have a very thorough Maybelline collection, one like no one else has. I'm sure I have Maybelline palettes you didn't even know existed. Not all of them though. I still have a couple to go, but I am collecting them, so none of these will be gotten rid of. I know some of them are terrible. I will let you know which ones are terrible and which ones are right on the way. So this is the countdown one. This was released for New Year's Eve a couple of years ago. I got this and the matching lipstick. Fairly terrible. Soda Pop, really good, great formula. Nudes of New York, phenomenal palette. Everyone should get that. Like if you've got to do a basics makeup kit for someone you know's younger, or even, that's for anyone, but like it would just make a great palette to add to a starter. Don't know how that got mixed up. This is a BYS eyeshadow. This is a berry scented berry palette with odd colors, and I'm not a huge fan of the formula. Anyway, the Burgundy bar, I think this was okay. It's not the same formula they use now, but it was certainly a step in the right direction. Like I said, I'm keeping it because I'm keeping them all, but I wouldn't keep that one if I was actually decluttering. This in the Brights palette that nobody knew Maybelline had. It's called the Graffiti Nudes, like oxymoron or what. And these have no pigment or anything, but it's staying, it would get tossed. This is the 24 karat nudes. This is an interesting palette. Like it's sort of that grungy color scheme way before we needed it, and I will give it, like, for being called the 24 karat palette, you would want it to have a decent gold, and it certainly does. I just put it in the middle there. But yeah, it's got these like grungy purples and greens and taupes and greys and stuff, so I would actually keep this one, although the formula's in the middle. It's not quite like as bad as Graffiti Nudes, but it's nowhere near Soda Pop and New Nudes. Okay, Total Temptation. This was one of their first, like, a cool moment and then a warm moment. You had to scrape a layer off the top of these to get them to work. Once you did that, they were all right. I would declutter it, actually, though. This this was like the second palette I ever got. I got L'Oreal Le Palette Le Nude from Tati's recommendations, and then I got this because it was exactly the same, and why not? Beginners, you mean to continue by having like 36 of the same shades immediately upon having 36. So the blush nudes, the idea of this was lovely. This was when the Naked palettes were the go, and I think this was a dupe for Naked 3. Execution terrible, like it's crap now. I thought it was fine at the time, and I would declutter it if it... Okay, the matte bar, the formula's starting to get better here. I would declutter it, but only because I already have these shadows. Interesting pan design though, they're a bit thin, hard to get at. Yeah, aside from that, like, I'm keeping it because, as I said, obsession, but I probably wouldn't. Lemonade Craze, starting to get better. It's a shame that the yellow here doesn't work. If the yellow worked, it would be a pretty good palette. The yellow should be a standout in Lemonade Craze, and it just doesn't, but the rest of the show is really good. I love Strawberry Lemonade there, and I love Sweet Tea, so I would keep this one. And then the City Lights, Urban Lights. So this is 2 blushes, and then just shimmer shades, and there's some duochrome shades. So that is a brown, green, red, and that is a purple and blue. That has a peach reflect, that has green reflect, green, gold, peach, pink, and these are sort of larger highlights. It's like Maybelline's take on a festival palette, I like to think, and it's pretty cute. I would keep this. I am, obviously, but I would keep this regardless. Here's my little L'Oreal palette nude. So, yeah, I took myself off, and this is like $35 in Australia. It's also half the size of the ones you guys get in America, but like Tati said, it was good. She did a good eye look. I was going to be the next Tati. I got it. I used it. I love it, and I'm keeping it. Essence Toppy's got to go. I love this, and I wish I could get it again. I've seen like they don't make this one anymore. They seem to make lots of similar ones, but not the toppy one. I shattered one of the shimmer shades. What I like about this is it's mostly cool tone matte. Actually, I'm going to keep it because I love the formula in this. I don't know why. Essence In Love with Roses. I'm going to get rid of just, I love this one, but I have better, what's the word? Formulas. And better formulas of the same colors. So, decluttering that one. Tiny little Australis I Spy palette. It's really good for traveling, I guess. Not that I have any huge palettes, but this does really nice little work. So keeping that. I'm going to get rid of this. I like it, but it's too hard to use because the palettes are so small. This is the only Revlon palette I have, so I don't know if just this is okay. You know, it's okay. Drugstore eyeshadow. I really like the colors. I have the L'Oreal mini palette in Enigma, and it's exactly the same. Like, I thought they were the same palette for a while, but this has a few more colors. But that's actually stupid because the palettes are so tiny you can't get a brush in there. So, it's okay. We're nearly done. We just have to do face palettes now. Okay, so designer brands again. We have the I Love Sunshine. This came out like last Christmas. I think there's a Moonshine one too that was cooler tones. Decluttering that because all of my things have the same color. This is the Praline face palette from Makeup Revolution that I said I like. I really like it for the blush, and that icy fondant one for the inner circle, or Bonbon. Praline would never work for me as anything, and that is way too dark as a bronzer, but I could use them as eyeshadows. Never do. Could. Keeping it. Designer brand Strawberry Shortcake Blush Up Complexion palette. Keeping it because the blush is such beautiful colors. There's that really pink one. See, that as a blush, I know it doesn't look like it, but it is. It's a beautiful blush, so I'm keeping it. This is MCO Beauty, and this is from the, see, this doesn't have a name of this collection either, but they had a few things in here. So it's 2 shimmer, 2 matte blushes. Keeping that. Designer brands like 3 years ago, Christmas collection, I think, Complexion Tin. Decluttering it just because I have so many of them. So it's a bronzer, 2 blushes, and 2 highlights. And that highlight is exactly the same as the other one. They always do that sort of opal highlight. It's a beautiful one. And then this one I'll keep. This is Models Prefer, which is Priceline's house brand. And this is just blushes, highlighters, bronzers, concealers, and there's cream products as well at the top. As I'm getting older, I use a lot of cream blushes and that sort of cream concealers, no duh, everyone does. So yeah, I really like this palette and I'll be keeping it. So I didn't declutter much, guys. I decluttered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 palettes and kept the rest, but hey, I got them because I liked them. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you saw some different palettes to everyone else's. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know if you think I like your channel, and I'll see you next video. Bye.